Hello everyone, welcome to our channel, where we bring you the most gripping stories full of unexpected twists and heartfelt moments. In this tale, one of the most jaw-dropping actions you'll encounter happens near the very end, when our determined hero must confront his past head-on to protect the people he loves most. How exactly does he manage to break down those walls and win back the trust he almost lost? You'll have to listen to the entire story to find out. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated whenever we share fresh, stirring narratives. We'd love to hear your personal take, so drop a comment below and let us know what you think might happen or what you'd do in a similar situation. You can also follow along on our channel anytime you need a dose of uplifting and exciting storytelling. Raphael Stone prided himself on his razor-sharp focus and impeccable discipline. As the CEO of Stone Innovations, a Fortune 500 conglomerate that managed high-end resorts, cutting-edge tech ventures, and luxury retail stores, he had long since perfected the art of juggling multiple crises at once. Nearly every moment of his day was accounted for, from the early morning phone calls with overseas business partners to the late evening strategy sessions with his board of directors. Yet beneath the immaculate suits, gleaming cufflinks, and air of unflappable confidence, Raphael carried a turbulent secret. He was a single father raising a 4-year-old daughter named Chloe on his own. It was a chapter in his life he had never expected, certainly not after the media fiasco that once branded him as the billionaire husband who ditches an 8-month pregnant wife at an isolated gas station for resort life. That headline, splashed across tabloids years ago, had been only partially rooted in truth. The details were far more complicated than the sensational press would have led people to believe. In reality, his now ex-wife had insisted on leaving the car during a heated argument, stepping out at a desolate roadside station while heavily pregnant with Chloe. Raphael's shock and inability to persuade her to return to the vehicle had sparked a slew of misunderstandings, with paparazzi spinning the story in the worst possible way. He had tried to coax her back, but as both the hours and his frustration mounted, Raphael had made a fateful decision to drive on, hoping she would follow in another car or that cooler heads might prevail soon after. Though nothing truly irreparable happened in that exact moment, the staff at the gas station made sure she was safe while she waited. This one incident had snowballed into irrevocable damage. Even after their daughter's birth, the tension between Raphael and his ex-wife spiraled beyond repair. Their divorce was tumultuous, and he ended up with sole custody of little Chloe, a bright, inquisitive girl who had inherited his determined stare, but none of his guarded cynicism. Where Raphael saw the world as a relentless battlefield to be conquered, Chloe marveled at the simplest joys: a colorful drawing, a new storybook, or a butterfly fluttering across their manicured lawn. Raphael knew the tabloids' tarnishing of his image was only part of the anguish. His own sense of guilt was far greater. He had grown used to the business world's unrelenting judgments, but he had never fully come to terms with the emotional chasm it had dug into his personal life. And so, every morning, Raphael Stone started his day at 5 a.m. sharp, pushing aside those lingering regrets in favor of rigorous efficiency. That morning in particular, he was running late. A crisis had flared overseas. An exclusive seaside resort in Bali faced heavy monsoon damage, and investors demanded immediate reassurance. Raphael was still on his phone when he tore through the kitchen, rummaging for Chloe's favorite cereal, mentally parsing through 5 different time zones. By the time he coaxed Chloe into the backseat of his luxury SUV, he was already on his second call of the day, balancing the phone between his shoulder and ear as he fastened her seatbelt. Chloe clutched her plush rabbit, Mr. Waffles, gazing at her father with the wide-eyed trust only a child could possess. Raphael ended one call just as another alert pinged, his assistant reminding him of a high-stakes board meeting at noon. Sliding behind the wheel, he revved the engine and sped out onto the boulevard lined with towering skyscrapers. High above them, the Stone Innovations corporate headquarters gleamed in the morning sun, another imposing structure synonymous with his power and wealth. Yet as he rushed toward the daycare, a persistent worry gnawed at him. He had changed Chloe's daycare the previous month because the old one had grown too lax about safety protocols. But in the haze of his schedule, some confusion must have slipped in. When he arrived at a brightly painted building named Happy Steps Learning Center, he barely glanced at the sign, merely confirming the address in a quick text from an assistant. Then, with scarcely a pause, he ushered Chloe inside, ignoring her tug on his sleeve as she tried to ask a question. "Here we are," he announced, leading her past a glass door festooned with cutout stars and smiley faces. "Daddy has to hurry. They'll take good care of you, sweetheart." Chloe frowned. "But Daddy, this doesn't look like—" "I know, darling. Just try it out for today," Raphael said, checking his watch. "I'm running behind." A staff member approached, confusion already starting to bloom on her face when she noticed Chloe wasn't on the day's roster. Raphael signed a form thrust in front of him without reading it thoroughly. He knelt beside his daughter for a moment, feeling a momentary pang of guilt for brushing her off, but still he kissed her forehead and hustled out the door. He never saw the uncertain glances exchanged by the daycare workers as he hurried back to his SUV, phone buzzing for the umpteenth time. Somewhere in the flurry of calls, emails, and the specter of that old scandal that still shadowed his name, Raphael had just made a dreadful mistake, one that would alter not just his morning, but his entire life. Marina Hayes believed in the magic that sparkled around children. With a warm, nurturing presence, she thrived on bringing comfort to anxious souls and guiding little hearts toward discovery. As the head teacher of Happy Steps Learning Center, she was used to the bustle of energetic toddlers running circles around pastel-colored walls. Yet this morning, something felt off. She studied the new arrival, a small girl with dark, inquisitive eyes and a slightly trembling lower lip, as the child peered around at a room she clearly did not recognize. Marina's internal alarms began to sound the minute the girl said her name was Chloe Stone, and that her father had called this place the new daycare. Confusion rippled through Marina's staff. Chloe's details did not appear on their electronic register, nor on any pre-enrollment forms. Still, sending a child away was never an option. They welcomed the little girl in, assuring her that she could stay and play until her father returned or until they could clarify the situation. Marina knelt so she was at Chloe's eye level, projecting calm in her voice. "I'm Miss Marina," she said softly. "We're going to figure this out, okay?" Chloe's bottom lip wobbled, but she gripped her rabbit a bit tighter and nodded. "Daddy was in a hurry," she offered as explanation, and a flicker of apprehension crossed her features. "I'm not sure if this is the right place," Marina offered a reassuring smile. "Even if it's just for today, we'll make you feel at home. How about we read a story together later?" After a small pause, Chloe nodded again. A wave of relief washed over Marina. There was something about this child that tugged at her heart. Maybe it was the gentle vulnerability in her eyes, a reminder of how perplexing the world could be at that age. Or perhaps it was something about the father's rushed departure that pricked at Marina's innate sense of empathy. Marina tried calling the phone number Chloe provided, but it went straight to voicemail. An assistant attempted to pull up Stone Innovation's main corporate contact. After navigating a maze of automated prompts, they were placed on hold. The background music looped in an endless circle, offering no easy solution. Marina's frustration grew. She was usually the patient one. At last, she decided that if no one picked up by afternoon, she'd call Child Protective Services for guidance. Not as a threat, but as a necessary protocol when a young child seems stranded without parental communication. Despite the tense start, Chloe settled into the environment with surprising resilience. She joined a group of kids painting cheerful suns and stick figure families. She tentatively showed off her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Waffles, which drew a giggle or two. Marina noticed how Chloe lit up during storytime. While the other children fidgeted in their seats, Chloe edged close, entranced by each word Marina read aloud. As the morning turned into afternoon, the sun pouring through the windows in bright rectangles of light, Marina found herself growing more attached to Chloe by the hour. She was protective by nature, and seeing an uncertain child in need amplified that instinct tenfold. The earlier confusion about enrollment had given way to a simple truth. Chloe was here now, and as long as she remained under Marina's care, she would not lack for compassion. Still, a note of apprehension colored the day. Marina had dealt with her share of high-profile parents, the ones whose time always seemed too valuable for the mundane tasks of parenting. But this situation felt different. If that was truly Chloe's father who dropped her off, someone wealthy enough to have several employees, given the mention of assistance, why had he vanished without ensuring everything was in order? Even if a board meeting was at stake or a major corporate crisis loomed, A father's responsibility should come first. Shaking off her uncharacteristically judgmental thoughts, Marina focused on the next steps. She and the staff would take care of Chloe until closing if need be. She intended to keep calling Stone Innovations, determined to get answers. None of them knew that this morning mishap, caused by a hasty decision from a man who once carried tabloid infamy for supposedly abandoning his pregnant wife, would be the catalyst for life-changing events, both for him and for the empathetic teacher now entrusted with his child's safety. By mid-afternoon, Raphael felt the weight of too many frantic hours crashing down on him. Back-to-back conference calls with associates in Asia had consumed his entire morning. In between, he'd navigated a flurry of legal documents regarding a new resort acquisition. Normally, his assistant would intercept personal calls unless they were urgent, but a vague message had slipped through. A woman from some daycare had left multiple voicemails. He frowned. Why would Chloe's new daycare be calling? He recalled that he had just updated the enrollment details recently. A rational voice in the back of his head suggested he check those messages immediately, but his pride intervened. He figured they could wait until after his noon board meeting. As the clock edged closer to lunch, he finally opened his voicemail. What he heard jarred him more than any corporate crisis could. Mr. Stone, this is Marina Hayes from Happy Steps Learning Center. Chloe was dropped off here by mistake, and we've been trying to reach you. Please contact us as soon as possible. The second message was more urgent. Mr. Stone, we need you to confirm your daughter's pickup plan. It's already past 1 o'clock, and we haven't heard back. If this continues, we'll need to notify the authorities for Chloe's safety. Raphael's stomach twisted with a dose of raw panic and guilt he hadn't felt since his ex-wife's final outburst before signing the divorce papers. Without wasting a breath, he canceled his next meeting and instructed his driver to head straight for Happy Steps Learning Center. The entire ride was plagued by flashes of worst-case scenarios. He recalled how, once upon a time, sensational rumors claimed he had abandoned a pregnant spouse. He could only imagine the field day the media would have if they learned that he'd effectively abandoned his own daughter at the wrong daycare. Pulling up to the quaint single-story building, Raphael leaped out of his car with far less composure than usual. Inside, he found the lobby bustling with late-afternoon pickups. Mothers, fathers, and nannies crowded around, escorting children out. Then he spotted Chloe, perched on a small wooden chair in a corner, coloring a picture with serious focus. And standing beside her, one hand gently resting on the child's shoulder, was a woman with soft features and empathetic eyes, presumably Marina Hayes. Upon seeing him, Chloe's expression lit up with relief, but also a hint of confusion. "Daddy, you came!" she announced, as if she had genuinely started to doubt he would. Raphael hurried over, feeling the eyes of other parents on him. "Of course, sweetheart. I'm sorry I took so long." He turned his attention to Marina, taking in her furrowed brows and the set of her jaw that spoke volumes about her frustration. Marina's greeting was polite, yet edged with reproach. "Mr. Stone, I presume?" "Yes," Raphael answered tersely. "I apologize for the confusion." "You dropped Chloe off at the wrong daycare," Marina replied calmly, but there was something in her eyes that said she didn't appreciate how this entire day had unfolded. "I tried calling multiple times. Eventually, I was ready to contact Child Protective Services." A flicker of shock crossed Raphael's face, accompanied by a flush of embarrassment. "I had no idea I'd arrived at the wrong place," he confessed, finally realizing how thoroughly he had erred. "I'm grateful you took care of Chloe. This was a terrible oversight, nothing more." Marina inhaled, trying to steady her voice. "I'm just relieved she's safe. You know, she was brave all day, but she was worried." Raphael turned to his daughter, who was now pressing her face into his suit jacket, too tired to voice any blame. His chest constricted. He'd always sworn he'd be a present father despite the fiascos of his personal life. Yet here he was, making mistakes that mirrored the tabloids' old accusations. The staff, the onlooking parents, and especially Marina Hayes, all seemed to be drawing unspoken conclusions about him. Without knowing why, he felt compelled to offer more than a standard apology. He carefully reached into his jacket pocket, extracted a business card, and handed it to Marina. "If you have any expenses from today, please bill me directly," he said. "Thank you, Miss Hayes, for taking care of my daughter." Marina accepted the card but made no move to pocket it. Instead, she locked eyes with him. "We can't put a price on a child's well-being, Mr. Stone. You might remember that next time." Her words struck deeper than he expected. Raphael nodded curtly, unsure how to respond. Chloe clung to him, and he recognized they both needed to leave. As he guided his daughter toward the exit, a quiet voice within told him this wasn't just a fleeting mishap. Something about Marina Hayes, her calm resolve, her refusal to be swayed by his wealth, simmered in the background. His chest tightened with a mixture of guilt, relief, and another emotion he couldn't yet name. That evening, Raphael settled Chloe in his penthouse overlooking the city skyline. The glass walls afforded a panoramic view of lights, stretching far beyond what a 4-year-old could appreciate. Typically, the night routine proceeded like clockwork. Dinner prepared by his personal chef, a quick bath, then story time. But tonight, Chloe was quieter than usual. She picked at her meal, her small shoulders tense. Raphael felt her mood as distinctly as if it were his own. "Pumpkin," he said softly, "I'm sorry about what happened today. I messed up." Chloe looked up with eyes far too wise for her 4 years. "It's okay, Daddy. I liked Miss Hayes." A small smile nudged her lips. "She read my favorite story 3 times. A pang of something, jealousy, regret, or longing, pierced Raphael. It wasn't that he begrudged someone else comforting his daughter. It was the realization that he should have been the one doing it. Where had his day gone that he couldn't even confirm the correct daycare location? Being a single father was never going to be easy, he reminded himself. But he had promised to do better than the tabloids suggested. He tucked Chloe into her bed, an ornate pink creation complete with a canopy. "Tomorrow you'll go back to your usual daycare, all right?" Chloe shrugged, clutching Mr. Waffles. "Can we go to Miss Hayes' place instead?" she asked. "She said I could color more pictures with her." Raphael paused, struck by how immediate Chloe's attachment was. "I'll think about it," he murmured, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. With a parting kiss, he dimmed the lights. Later, in the dim glow of his home office, he found himself revisiting the name Marina Hayes. A quick search revealed surprisingly little about her, just standard references to the Happy Steps Learning Center. No social media pages plastered with selfies or rants. No personal website. No sensational backstory. She seemed squeaky clean, at least from a cursory check. In the hush of midnight, as the city's pulse slowed, Raphael's mind drifted to the events that had led him to single parenthood. The scandal over ditching his pregnant wife at that gas station might have been misrepresented in the press, but there was enough truth in it to sting. The argument, her refusing to get back in the car, his own stubbornness, those were real failings. He'd poured everything into ensuring that once Chloe was born, he would never again let chaos overshadow his responsibilities. But had he traded one form of negligence for another? He was present in her life physically, feeding her, clothing her, making sure she had the best of everything. Yet maybe he wasn't truly present in the ways that counted most. His phone buzzed, snapping him out of his introspection. It was a text from his assistant, reminding him of the next day's jam-packed agenda. Despite the meltdown of the morning, business was unstoppable. Negotiations, brand expansions, new resort ventures, they all demanded his immediate attention. Raphael set the phone aside, glancing once more at the online directory for Happy Steps. A part of him wanted to apologize again to Marina, to assure her he was not some callous mogul who viewed his daughter as a mere accessory to be ferried around. But how could he express that without coming across as overly defensive? He had no illusions about his reputation. People whispered behind his back, some with pity, some with derision. Perhaps the best approach was simply to do better next time. He would handle Chloe's schedule more carefully, double-check addresses, and keep his phone on for emergencies. He would be the father she deserved. Yet a single phone call could have smoothed out the entire misunderstanding. Why hadn't he made it? Why had he let hours pass without confirming her safety? These gnawing questions dogged him through the night as he grappled with the sense that something fundamental was missing in both his and Chloe's lives. In the soft hush of the penthouse, he realized that maybe, just maybe, what was missing was the kind of warmth that could never be bought, no matter how many zeros his bank account held. The next morning dawned crisp and bright, a hint of autumn in the air. Raphael stood in front of his penthouse's towering windows, sipping black coffee as he studied the city below. Today, he promised himself, would run more smoothly. He'd verified the correct daycare address. He'd even set an alarm on his phone as a reminder to call the staff there an hour after dropping Chloe off, just to ensure all was well. He wouldn't repeat yesterday's fiasco. When he went to rouse Chloe, however, the little girl met him with a stubborn pout. She insisted on returning to Happy Steps Learning Center. "I liked Miss Hayes, Daddy," she repeated, folding her arms. "She made me feel safe." The quiet emphasis on safe pricked at Raphael's conscience. "Sweetheart," he began, "your usual daycare is fine. They know you there, your friends are there." "But Miss Hayes said I was good at painting," Chloe interrupted, eyes flashing with a sudden vigor. "And she told me stories about animals that live in the jungle. My old daycare just gives me crayons and tells me to stay in the lines." Raphael stared at his daughter, realizing that she was hardly making a random request. She had felt genuinely comforted by this teacher who had offered warmth and patience. Part of him wondered if granting her wish would only fuel gossip, that he'd pivoted to the daycare he mistakenly stumbled upon simply because he was a wealthy parent who changed rules at a whim. Yet the bigger part of him was wrestling with a father's concern. Chloe had glowed while talking about Marina. Wasn't that enough reason to consider switching, at least temporarily? After a moment, he conceded. "All right, we'll try Happy Steps one more time, but just a day or two, understand? I need to sort out the paperwork." Chloe's resulting grin was bright enough to rival the sunrise. "Thank you, Daddy." Driving through the city, Raphael kept glancing in the rearview mirror at Chloe's excited face. When they pulled up in front of the colorful building, he felt a rush of nerves he couldn't quite name. Surely Marina Hayes would be surprised to see them again, especially after the chaos he'd caused. He coached himself mentally as he opened the car door for Chloe, reminding himself to stay polite, professional, and above all, apologetic. Inside, he found Marina reading to a small circle of children. The instant she spotted him, her expression flickered from curiosity to something unreadable. A subtle arch of her eyebrow asked the question she didn't say aloud. "Why are you here again?" Raphael cleared his throat, stepping closer. "Miss Hayes," he began, "I realize this might be unexpected. Chloe insisted on coming back. If it's possible to enroll her, temporarily, I'd appreciate it." Marina carefully marked her place in the storybook, then stood, moving a slight distance away from the children so she could address him without disturbing them. "I suppose we can fit her in," she replied, her tone measured. "But you understand there's a formal process, correct? Paperwork, fees, immunization records, emergency contacts." "Yes, of course." Raphael retrieved a neat folder from inside his briefcase. "I came prepared this time." Marina accepted the folder, flipping through the documents with a critical eye. Satisfied that he had done at least this much, she handed it to an assistant to begin processing. Then she knelt to greet Chloe, who beamed and wrapped her arms around Marina's neck. Raphael observed the quiet bond forming there. His own heart unexpectedly pulled. "I'm glad you're here," Marina murmured to Chloe. "We still have those paints if you want to finish your picture from yesterday." Chloe nodded eagerly, slipping her hand into Marina's and practically floating toward the art station. Raphael watched them go, a tightness in his chest that felt suspiciously like gratitude mixed with something deeper. He didn't often see his daughter's face so openly excited. When Marina returned, she studied Raphael for a moment. "I'm sure you're busy, Mr. Stone, but I'd like to talk with you after you pick Chloe up, just to touch base about her transition, if you plan on making it permanent." He nodded. "I'll be here at 4 sharp." In truth, he welcomed the chance to talk, to show he wasn't the reckless figure the tabloids had once vilified. He tried to quell the flicker of anticipation that rose in him. This was about Chloe, after all, not about forging personal connections. Yet as he walked out the door, he felt an odd wave of relief. There was something about leaving Chloe in the capable care of Marina Hayes that set his mind more at ease than he expected. Despite the bruises to his pride and the lingering echoes of his old scandal, perhaps this was the next step in healing, not just for Chloe, but for himself. Over the following week, Raphael found himself in an unanticipated new routine. Every morning he arrived at Happy Steps promptly at 8, accompanied by a particularly excited Chloe. He'd exchange a few polite words with Marina, making sure he gave her the relevant updates, like if Chloe had a slight cold or a restless night's sleep. By late afternoon, he'd return to pick her up, just as he'd promised, On the surface, it was a simple arrangement, yet day by day, something intangible was shifting. In the beginning, Marina was cordial but reserved. She appeared set on maintaining clear professional boundaries, especially with a parent whose track record began with a glaring mistake. But Raphael noticed small cracks in her armor whenever she interacted with Chloe. It was in the way her stern expression softened into a smile, the way her voice brightened when Chloe greeted her with a squeal. Each moment chipped away at the distance Raphael felt from her. He, in turn, caught himself doing things he never did. After dropping Chloe off, he would linger, watching from the doorway as Marina orchestrated an art lesson or circle time reading. A couple of times, he pretended to answer text messages on his phone, just so he could observe the way she crouched to a child's height, gently guiding them with patience and reassurance. These glimpses awakened in him a quiet yearning, a realization that his life had always lacked a certain tenderness. In the late afternoons, once the children had gone, Raphael often found himself unexpectedly early for pickup. He told his staff to rearrange his schedule so he could have that buffer of 15 or 20 minutes. By the time he stepped inside, he'd find Marina cleaning up paints or collecting small chairs that had scattered throughout the day. The first couple of times, their post-daycare conversations focused solely on Chloe's progress. Marina would explain how Chloe excelled in imaginative play, or how she sometimes struggled with separation anxiety in the first few minutes after Raphael left. As the days slipped by, their talks became more open. One evening, when Raphael arrived even earlier than usual, he found Chloe dozing on a beanbag after an energetic day of crafts and games. Marina was seated beside her, gently stroking her hair while reading from a well-worn storybook. The instant he saw how Chloe nestled against Marina's side, breathing in soft, contented puffs, his heart tightened in a way that felt simultaneously comforting and unsettling. When Chloe stirred and woke, Marina explained that she had been especially tired after an active afternoon. "You might want to give her a lighter evening," she suggested gently. "Maybe skip the usual fast-paced schedule. Let her rest at home." Raphael nodded, lifting Chloe into his arms. "Thank you," he said, meaning it on multiple levels. He thanked her not just for the day's care, but for the sense of warmth that Chloe was clearly receiving, a warmth he knew he struggled to provide. And so it continued, a daily exchange of small moments that hinted at bigger revelations. One afternoon, Marina casually mentioned that she recognized Raphael's name from press coverage in years past, but did not elaborate. "I try not to judge by headlines," she said simply, when she caught Raphael stiffen at the mention. "I prefer forming my own opinions based on my experiences with a person." Her words, free of condemnation, struck him like a blow. So few people in his orbit had the decency to let go of preconceived notions. Here in this modest daycare, he found someone who truly assessed him, not by rumor or reputation, but by how he treated her and his daughter in the present. That evening, after tucking Chloe into bed, Raphael found himself staring out over the city once again. He felt a tug to understand more about Marina Hayes, beyond her role as a teacher. What had drawn her to this line of work? Why was she so remarkably patient and kind to children who weren't her own? Yet he also worried that prying into her personal affairs might overstep boundaries. So he remained in limbo, curious but cautious, daydreaming about possibilities he'd never dared consider before. That maybe companionship, warmth, and love were not unattainable luxuries. Perhaps he'd allowed the memory of that dreadful day at the gas station to overshadow his worth as a partner. A month passed in this gentle dance. The autumn weather deepened, painting the city in amber tones. Chloe blossomed at happy steps, forming friendships and returning home with paint-smudged fingers, squealing excitement about the day's activities. Raphael found an unexpected solace there too, though he kept it hidden behind his polished exterior. He looked forward to those moments in the daycare's hallway, a place that felt warm and genuine, so unlike the grand boardrooms echoing with professional pleasantries. One afternoon, he arrived and found Marina with tears in her eyes. She was standing near a collage of children's drawings, quickly dabbing at her cheeks with a tissue. Startled, he approached softly. "Is everything okay?" he asked, voice laden with worry. Marina forced a small smile. "Just a moment of nostalgia," she said, gesturing to the drawings. "They drew pictures of their families today. It reminded me of my own childhood." Her voice caught slightly, and she paused to steel herself. "I lost my parents in a car accident a few years ago," she continued quietly. This time of year always stirs memories of them. Raphael inhaled slowly, remembering the cursory background check that yielded no personal clues. Now he realized how deeply private she was, guarding a well of pain behind that nurturing facade. "I'm so sorry," he said, the words feeling inadequate. "I didn't know." She shrugged gently, swallowing. "I rarely talk about it, but seeing these little ones draw pictures of happy families, it makes me think about how fleeting life can be. That's part of why I love this job. I can be there for children when they need comfort or a gentle push to explore the world. I guess it's a way of honoring what I lost." Raphael's chest constricted with empathy. He reached out, almost placing a hand on her shoulder before thinking better of it, uncertain whether physical reassurance was welcome. Instead, he spoke softly. "Your parents would be proud of you." Marina's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but she managed a smile. "Thank you," she murmured. At that precise moment, Chloe burst out of the art room, brandishing a piece of colorful construction paper. "Daddy, Miss Hayes, look!" she cried. On it, she had drawn a tall figure in a suit, complete with an exaggerated tie, a smaller figure with brown pigtails, and what appeared to be a large gray rabbit. Between them stood a woman with bright yellow hair, presumably Marina. They were all holding hands under a big rainbow. "Is that me in your picture?" Marina asked, touched by the gesture. Chloe nodded eagerly. "Yes, you're part of our family too, aren't you?" A hush fell over the three of them. Raphael's gaze drifted from the picture to Marina's face, and he saw something flicker there, a mixture of longing and cautious hope. In a way, Chloe's innocent statement had crystallized a hidden truth they had both been dancing around. Marina was more than just a teacher to Chloe. She'd become a figure of emotional support, a steady presence in their lives. And Raphael realized he wanted that presence for himself too. That evening, after dropping Chloe off at home with a trusted nanny, Raphael returned to Happy Steps. He had texted Marina, asking if she'd be available to discuss a school fundraiser idea he wanted to propose. Only half an excuse. When he arrived, the building was almost empty, staff finishing up routine cleanup. Marina was waiting for him in the office, which was little more than a modest room lined with shelves of children's books and stacks of construction paper. "Thanks for coming back," Marina said. She seemed calmer now, if a bit guarded. "You said something about a fundraiser?" Raphael cleared his throat, trying to sound self-assured. "Yes, I'd like to sponsor an art program for the kids. That drawing Chloe made got me thinking. Maybe we can bring in visiting artists, fund better supplies, whatever you need." He paused, searching her face for any sign of disapproval. "I want to contribute in a meaningful way, not just write a check." Marina's eyes lit up with genuine appreciation. "That's an incredible offer. The kids would benefit so much. Thank you." He caught her gaze then, and the unspoken tension between them was almost palpable. Words hovered in the air, words neither dared to speak yet. In that small office with fluorescent lighting and whimsical posters, they both realized the conversation they truly wanted was not about an art program or donation forms. But neither made a move to bridge the distance. Not yet. In the weeks that followed, life began to feel like a tapestry, weaving itself tighter. Raphael launched the art program with vigor. True to his word, he didn't merely throw money at the idea. He arranged for a local artist to conduct a weekly workshop, then coordinated with a children's author for a special reading day. Under his guiding hand, Happy Steps saw an influx of resources that transformed the modest daycare into a hub of creative inspiration. Children from other neighborhoods came flocking, drawn by rumors of painting classes and story circles led by real authors. Chloe's joy was near boundless. Every morning, she raced into daycare with new ideas, while every afternoon she regaled Raphael with the day's highlights. Though he still shouldered a colossal workload, he found a curious balance in these efforts. He began scheduling his corporate obligations around the daycare's special events. If the media found out, they might paint him as a philanthropic mogul seeking good press. But Raphael knew it was more personal than that. For the first time in years, he felt connected to something beyond corporate success. And what of Marina? She gracefully managed the influx of new children, ensuring that every kid, old or new, felt welcome. The program soared, yet she remained humble. In the midst of the flurry, Raphael often caught her eye and found a silent understanding passing between them. Gratitude, yes, but also a deepening affection that neither quite had the courage to name. One crisp morning, as Raphael was leaving the daycare after dropping off Chloe, Marina motioned for him to step aside. "We're planning a small show next week to display the children's artwork," she explained. "I was hoping you'd attend. Maybe even say a few words to the parents about what inspired you to support the program." Raphael paused. Public speaking in front of a handful of parents was not an issue. He did that daily on a larger scale with corporate investors. Yet in this setting, it felt oddly intimate. "I'd be happy to," he said, forcing away the anxiety that nudged him. The day of the show arrived and the daycare hummed with excitement. Children's paintings and sketches filled the walls. Strings of colorful bunting crisscrossed the ceiling, and proud parents gathered in small clusters. Raphael wore a casual blazer, less formal than his usual suit, trying to blend into the familial atmosphere. Chloe tugged him eagerly through the corridors, pointing out her best friend's artwork and giggling at the oversized finger-painted whale that nearly covered an entire bulletin board. Eventually, Marina introduced him to the assembled crowd. The parents applauded politely as he stepped forward, a handful of note cards clutched in one hand. He glanced at them, then at the expectant faces. Suddenly, reading from a script felt disingenuous. Instead, he set the cards aside and spoke from the heart, about how creativity enriches a child's world, how every scribbled drawing can unlock hidden confidence, and how proud he was to be part of fostering that growth. Marina watched him with an expression he couldn't quite decipher, part admiration, part something else that made his pulse quicken. The applause that followed felt like a warm tide rushing over him, and though the event was small compared to his usual grand corporate galas, it carried a deeper sense of fulfillment. Afterward, as parents mingled and children posed for photos beside their creations, Raphael slipped away to find Marina. She stood near a display of artwork depicting families, biting her lip as she rearranged a crooked frame. He approached quietly, heart pounding in a manner that was both thrilling and disconcerting. "You did great," she remarked softly, noticing his presence. The parents seemed really moved. "I'd wager you inspired more than a few folks to invest time in their own children's artistic sides." He exhaled a small laugh. "I'm glad. I only spoke the truth. I was just as lost in that old corporate grind as anyone. I'd forgotten the wonder in a child's mind until Chloe started drawing pictures that included me." Marina's gaze flickered to where Chloe was happily showing her grandmother, Raphael's mother who had come in to support, around the exhibit. Then she looked back at Raphael, eyes filled with quiet admiration. "You're a good father, Raphael. I can see how hard you try for Chloe's sake." Donum, for once, the old insecurities didn't weigh him down. Those recollections of tabloid smears about how he had supposedly abandoned his pregnant spouse years ago. He squared his shoulders, letting the sincerity in Marina's voice fortify his confidence. "I'm doing my best," he said simply. In that moment, words ceased to matter. A gentle hush seemed to envelop them, overshadowing the hum of voices in the background. Raphael glanced at the artwork behind her. One piece, presumably from Chloe, showed a tall figure, a small girl, and a smiling blonde woman, all holding hands under a radiant sun. A near duplicate of the earlier drawing that had moved them so profoundly. For the first time, he allowed himself to dream that maybe, just maybe, that image could become a reality. Then, stirred by an impulse that felt more genuine than any business decision he'd ever made, he leaned in and quietly asked, "Marina, can I take you to dinner sometime? Just the two of us." She blinked, her cheeks coloring. The invitation hung between them, a delicate bud of possibility. Finally, she nodded. "I'd like that," she whispered, her eyes never leaving his. And in that instant, surrounded by the vivid swirl of children's artwork and their innocent laughter, it felt like something vital was finally falling into place. As our story continues, relationships deepen and secrets are exposed, creating a whirlwind of emotions for everyone involved. Those moments of tension, heartbreak, and eventual hope form the core of our narrative, reminding us that true love and family bonds can triumph over even the most daunting obstacles. In the final stretch of this journey, you'll witness a powerful decision that may change everything for our characters, and you won't want to miss a second of it. Curious to find out who stands by our protagonist and who might walk away? Keep listening to the full story. There's so much more waiting to unfold. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more enthralling tales, and be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback guides us, and we can't wait to share even more captivating stories with all of you.